Hello, everyone, and welcome to Phillies Talk Podcast for special July 4th weekend edition. Whole lot of happenings going on down in South Philadelphia, although we had a rainout last night with the Phillies-Marlins finale being rained out. Probably good for the Phillies, because I think they needed a little extra break or something to get their heads together, because they've been playing terrible baseball in the past 2 weeks, I'm going to call it. I tried to do a podcast about a week ago, and I was mad. It turned into a rant fest. I decided not to release it because it was just so. It kind of exemplified the frustration of not being to the playoffs for so long, and the way the Phillies were playing. They were blowing game after game. Hector Neris was blowing a game, then they put him right back in, he blows another game. And I just didn't release the podcast because it sounded like a bunch of, complaining. But, for July 4th, I figured, before too much time elapses, I figured I would do a show. So, I wanted to wish a happy 4th to my broadcast partner, Matt Veasey. I'm sure he's home enjoying it with family and on the road and things like that. I've seen him posting from time to time on social media, so I wanted to give him this holiday off from talking about a team that frankly needs a lot of work. They're scheduled tonight. If you're watching the YouTube feed, I have a video running of the Phillies website, on the front page here. July 2nd is when I'm taping the show, and the Phillies are still scheduled to take on the NL disaster crew, I guess you want to call it. They've been wiping out teams left and right and playing great baseball. The San Diego Padres are in town for a weekend series here in Philadelphia. 6:05 start scheduled for Friday night. We've had some thunderstorms and showers rolling through the area, so it'll be interesting to see if they get this ball game in, and we'll have to see. That's yet to be determined. The Phillies playing it minute by minute so far right now. It's late in the afternoon as I'm doing the podcast here, around 20 minutes to 5. Still an hour and a half to game time just about, but nothing announced on it. But something that the Phillies and Citizens Bank did announce is that Elton John is coming to Citizens Bank Park, his farewell Yellow Brick Road Tour, July 15th, 2022. And how many times have these stars went on these farewell tours? Genesis is coming back. They did a farewell tour in 2007. Now it's, 13, 14 years later, and they're going to do another farewell tour. It's twice the money. So, anyway, I hope if you go to that show, you enjoy it. Maybe the last tour, these guys always say that, but, they seem to always have another tour left in them. All right, well, back to baseball. Zach Wheeler looking to pick up where he left off. His last start, he got a big win for the Phillies, and he's been their go-to guy. He's 6-4 on the season so far. I'm calling him the Phillies ace. He's got a 2.20 ERA in 16 games so far. As we get close to the AllStar break. And don't know how you feel about the All-Star game out there, but I'm not going to watch it. I'm not feeding into the stupidity, in my opinion, of Major League Baseball. Moving it from Atlanta. There was no reason on God's green earth to move this game from Atlanta when they waited for years for an All-Star game. That would be like Philadelphia in 2026 when we're supposed to get it. If some cockamamie group of people say something to the MLB anymore, regardless of how factual it is, this is an organization that's moving on pins and needles, it seems. If somebody wants to pull the rug out from under them, they're just fine with it, seems like. Of course, MLB moving the game this year to Colorado. And, I don't know what side of the story you follow on this, or even not follow. I think you'd be better off if you didn't follow it. But, the MLB is a strange organization in 2021. There's no doubt about it. For years, they went against gambling. Gambling was such a terrible thing. Now they're in bed with the gambling establishments. You watch a Phillies game, you'll see a cut during the middle of an inning to a person that's affiliated with gambling, and then they throw it back to Tom McCarthy like they're doing a live thing or something. I mean, that to me is a little bit, and more than a little bit, odd, and a lot towards the ruination of things. That baseball used to always be that establishment of, and I'm for gambling, don't get me wrong, when it's in the right aspect, when it had, is legal in Nevada. That was the only place basically you could put a wager down. There was a couple small other places across the country you could do that. And, I was always a proponent of it, but I didn't realize that, yes, when that gets legalized, then the money flows into the organization from these companies, and they just get in a relationship that's not a cozy one, so to speak. It's a tainted relationship, if you want to say that, when an organization like MLB starts accepting money from and investing in betting houses, and they have already. So I don't see that you can call yourself a pristine establishment that holds itself in high regard. All right, so that's what happens when an organization gets involved in closely with another organization like MLB Baseball and, say, DraftKings. You can't trust that relationship. It gets muddled. It gets muted. Look what baseball does to baseballs. What if it meant millions of dollars? I'm sure they're going to, act like an organization that's trying to make money. You just don't know what's going to happen. All right. Back to my original premise about Zach Wheeler. I think he's the ace of the Phillies, and I wonder if you agree with me. And let me know. Give me an email. Send it to rich@baseballtalkradio.com or write it on the blog where I have this blog post on fightinphillies.com of this podcast. I'd love to hear your opinions out there. And I used to hear from a lot of you, but not so much lately, I guess because the podcast hasn't been doing the shows as regularly as I had been. Usually was banging them out once per week. But with this season, just doesn't give me the inspiration to get recording too much, too often. So it's a little bit more difficult to do that. But game one with the Phillies and the Padres, rather. Wish the Pirates were playing like the Padres. But the Padres tonight, I think they're going to bring it to the Phillies. They're going to expose the Phillies in this series, I think, for the team that unfortunately they really are. At times, the Phillies have excited and brought some, what do you want to call it, faith that they may make the playoffs at some point, but I think they've really caught up to themselves as they really are, and they're not a good team. This bullpen is probably one of the worst in the league, if not, down there, and they just can't seem to put it all together. When the offense fires, it's the bullpen that suffers, and vice versa. So, what can you say? We hoped for better this year. We were thinking maybe this was the year that the Phillies would return to the playoffs, but I think it would take a miracle for that to happen. It would be a drastic turn from where they're at right now. Now, at the flip side, we're going to see a team this weekend which had been playing terribly for years. When's the last time you heard the San Diego Padres do anything, or them being mentioned as a playoff team, or even what you would say a team that should go maybe all the way to the World Series this year? Probably you had to go back many, many years for a team like San Diego. They've always been a team that was rebuilding. We never heard much from them. And then probably 2 seasons ago in the off season, before the COVID season, they started to get aggressive. They got some draft picks, 1 or 2 draft picks, and then they went on a nice acquisition of a few top-name players. And then they surrounded with those top-named players some good ball players that have rose to the occasion so far this year anyway. And like the Mets, the Padres have been hit with a lot of injuries. So far this year, Blake Snell currently on the IL for 10 days. He's one of their top pitchers, as well as a couple of the other guys have had injuries as well. Mike Clevenger on a 60-day injury list. And, excuse me, but Yu Darvish is carrying the load for them. And, of course, their exciting superstars are Manny Machado, even though he's not really banging out the numbers we'd expect him to. He's having a nice season. And the advent of a guy named Fernando Tatis Jr., who, if you look at any MLB highlight reel, he is always in those reels. So he's having a great season. He's a flashy player, young guy. Tall, though. I didn't know he was as tall as he is. He's 6'3", 217. Fernando Tatis Jr. Wow. So I figured he would be a little shorter than that. And if there was any one game that I'd like to see this season, it would probably be one of these games coming up against the Padres here in Philadelphia. But doesn't look like I'm going to get to the game this weekend. So we'll see. But their bullpen has been stellar, and they've surrounded themselves with good players. That's one thing that I do not understand about the Phillies, is the quality and caliber of their bullpen, unfortunately, is bad. It's poor. It's, again, back to that AAA type of bullpen that they've had for the last several years now. And I don't care if you're the Pope, you're not going to manage this team better. You're not going to be able to bless it and have it, perform like people that they're not. This bullpen is just unfortunately not up to the challenge that they're trying to put it under. We had one of the players let go, or DFA'd. Lord knows where he's going to go. But Joe Girardi is the manager of this team. He's got certain pieces that he can use, sort of like a chess match. And if those pieces don't perform, he's going to get blamed for it. And here is the relief pitcher, Neftali Perez, who was trying to make a comeback himself. Hadn't pitched since 2017. And maybe he won't be pitching too much more for his career here. Blew a 2-run lead in Cincinnati and led it to a 2-run deficit, and then he gets brought in against the Marlins, turned a tie game into 3-run deficit. So, it's you're not going to last very long if you keep doing that. And all we see is stories again and again about this bullpen. Here's Todd Zalecki's piece if you're watching this on YouTube, which I would invite you to search for Phillies Talk Podcast by Rich Baxter on YouTube and hit that subscribe button for me. We've got a few subscribers. We need to get like 1,000 or 2. So, and all that subscriber button means is that if we make a video, being the Phillies Talk Podcast, you'll get a notification that, hey, we have a new video available. It's no cost to you, and it's convenient. If you're not used to it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I think you'll have an easier time of finding this show and some of the comments that we make on it. So here's Girardi here with a quote. Obviously, this is a performance-based business, and you have to perform or changes are made, and that goes for everyone, includes me too. If the team doesn't perform to the standards, I'm the one that's in charge, and I'm the one that's responsible. It's the business we live in. So right now, fingers are starting to point at Joe Girardi. He's got certain people to work with, and that's all he has. He can't go out there on the mound and do it himself, but he's getting blamed for certain moves where I think it should be more or less, who's making the moves upstairs that are bringing these players in that can't play. That's the real issue. You can't perform miracles with a team with certain players that just aren't up to the challenge. It's actually crazy to think about it. If something's not working, it's not working. And this Phillies team, we've seen it's not working. And Girardi here saying another comment after the Miami game the other night. My bullpen was extremely limited. Okay, well, somebody upstairs got to start listening to Joe Girardi and listening to what he says. He's obviously saying, hey, guys, we need some assistance with this bullpen, in so many words every night in this post-game interview. The same old guys are getting ripped. Ranger Suarez, Jose Alvarado, Bailey Falter has been faltering quite a bit for the Phillies. They're just Hector Neris losing his closer's job. He should have lost maybe more than his closer's job. He should have been off of this team, and the Phillies should be hunting for some fresh arms that can get the job done. Until they do that, you're going to be looking at a team that's probably going to be under 500 when we're done with this season. They're 4 games under right now. They're generally, if they're playing well into the AllStar break, you got a chance, but they're playing bad into the AllStar break. It could only get worse from here. It might be really worse. They've slipped from, a good place in the standings of second behind the Mets, and they've plummeted down to, almost down to the basement. But that's what happens when a team is not playing well. You just start racking up the losses, and it becomes contagious. So, well, I didn't want to paint that dire a picture on 4th of July weekend. It's supposed to be a happy time for the country. And in just a couple of years, 5 years from now, the Phillies will be hosting, hopefully, unless some, God forbid, some, splinter group comes along and somehow gets the game moved out of Philadelphia by then. There's no telling what the MLB might do anymore, folks. It's getting so rebellious. It's getting so a powder keg type of company, or it's really becoming a monopoly, actually. But that's the subject of another show. But I don't want to even go there for now. But let's check out the standings before we wrap up the special program, and I hope it all records well. The Mets are on top still. Wow, 5 games over 500, and they're playing pretty good ball, even though they've lost a few games. Let's see, in their last 10, they're 4-6. So they've been losing. They're on a 2-game losing streak. But look at the Phillies. They've dropped almost down to the bottom. They're contending with the bottom with the Miami Marlins there. Marlins are 8 games back. The Phillies currently 4.5 games back. But look at the win percentage. .474 for the Phillies, .430 for the Marlins. So wouldn't be surprised if the Phillies occupy that basement somewhat soon, because they're not correcting any mistakes. Look at the record, 3-7 in the last 10. Facing some competition, as that's what baseball is all about. Good old-fashioned competition, and the Phillies will have that. Let's take a brief look at the schedule for July. We just got into the month of July here, and of course July 1st's game showing as postponed to be made up on July 16th, part of a doubleheader. 3 games at home with the Padres. Then we go to Chicago for 4, all at 8:05 out there. That's our time. And then into Boston. Wow. For 3. And then it's the AllStar break. So we're looking at a handful of games before the AllStar break, and then it could be all curtains for the Phillies from there. They're back home playing the Marlins for a 4-game series. They got the doubleheader on the 16th of July, 6:05 start on Saturday, the 17th of July. And the 18th is Beach Towel Day at Citizens Bank Park at 1:05 p.m. And then the Phillies go back onto the road and face the Yankees before coming home for kind of a long homestand with the NL East. 4 games with the Braves and 4 games with the Nationals. Folks, this could be a terrible month for the Phillies if they can't get this turned around. Look at the teams they're facing. We just did, but they're powerhouse teams. The Braves are starting to surge. They beat the Mets 20-2 the other day or something. But the Phillies are playing top clubs of the Padres. 4 games against the Cubs, who are playing pretty good baseball this year. 3 games against the Red Sox, and they got it together. I shudder to think of the Phillies' record on the 30th of July, or the 31st for that matter. Could get ugly, folks. Well, let's think positive. Enjoy your 4th of July weekend. Go out for those barbecues, and maybe keep the Phillies on the radio kind of quiet somewhere. So if they're losing, it's not a big deal. But have a good holiday, and thanks for listening to this podcast, a long-running Fighting Phillies podcast. I want to remember my good friend Jim Mulry on this holiday. He was my co-host for many years on this show, one of the founders with me on Phillies Talk going back to 2006 when we started our Phillies Sports Talk show, which covered the Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers. Did that for about 6 months to a year, I believe, and then we renamed it and just focused strictly on the Phillies, and we named it the Phillies Talk Podcast way back, I want to say probably for the 07 season, the start of that. And maybe I'll put up a one of our first or second shows for you some nostalgic show. You can hear Jimmy and my comments back from '07. You'll probably hear some of the same things that are going wrong today with this Phillies team. So, all right, have a great holiday, everyone. I'll talk to you towards the All-Star break. We'll have Matt back on the show, and I hope to get another show out towards the maybe towards the end of the Cubs series in Chicago. If I can get some time to record with Matt, that would be great. All right, take care, everyone.